I asked AI for a good hook to this video, and it told me to use clickbait. And you won't believe what happened next. Nothing. Nothing at all happened next. I made that all up. That was a joke. I wasn't really lying to you. It was. I totally just clickbaited you. I'm very sorry. But since you're here, let's talk about Where the Axe is Buried by Nayler. I want to do a quick, mostly spoiler-free review of Where the Axe is Buried. Talk about whether or not you should read it. Personally, I think you should, but you can make your own decisions. I am not your mommy. I could be your mommy, but we'd have to talk about that later. In the meantime, Where the Axe is Buried. It is a sci-fi book. It is about authoritarianism and the resistance to. It does involve AI, which is where that hook came from, which was a very funny joke. It wasn't a funny joke. I understand that. It wasn't a funny joke. Okay, I get it. I get it. No more using AI jokes. Tough crowd. It's also about struggle. The book. The book is about struggle. This video is also about struggle, but it's just my struggle, so you don't have to worry about it. And the book is about a book. I actually just finished my second Nayler book, which is not Where the Axe is Buried. The second Nayler book I read was Palaces of the Crow, which also involves a book. There are some interesting parallels, although the two books are otherwise very different. But I thought that was interesting, and it almost led me into this whole, I should do a whole video just on, like, Nayler. And then I thought, that's going to be way too confusing. Let's just one book at a time. One book at a time. You will hear about Palaces of the Crow in my next wrap-up, okay? All right. One book at a time. We're talking about Where the Axe is Buried. Reasons why you wouldn't like this book. I like to get these out of the way just right up front. So, like, if these are points for you, if these are pain points for you, maybe just don't. Maybe just don't read the book. First, possible pain point. There are a lot of POV characters, and they are not all connected. That's kind of a lie. They are a little bit connected, but they are all connected to, like, sort of the bigger overall story. They are not all connected to each other. They span half the globe. I don't think anybody in the Americas is involved, but Europe, Asia, all over the place over there, spanning about half the globe. You switch back and forth between these POV characters, not entirely on a chapter-by-chapter basis, but pretty close. So if a lot of different characters all over the globe who are not necessarily all talking about the same thing, because you've got kind of two different stories going on here, that if that bothers you, maybe don't read this book. Another possible pain point on this book is that it is meditative and reflective. There are points in this book where people just reminisce. They think about their pasts. They think about their childhoods. They think about their families. They think about things that they have done. They think about their regrets. They think about their triumphs. They think a lot. There's a lot of people thinking in this book. There's not a whole lot of action in some of these chapters. Some of these chapters almost purely exist just so that you can get one person thinking, possibly a character who hasn't even had a POV chapter before. So if that bothers you, you might not read this book. It is very sort of reflective. It is very sort of meditative. I don't think it's slow. I am not going to say that this book is slow. I don't think it is. It's just, you're in someone's head, and sometimes those heads wander and start thinking about things. And there's not a whole lot of what their body is doing because they are all entirely inside their own heads. Possible pain point. It's up to you whether or not you like that kind of book. Yes, the hair has changed. Just deal. Okay, deal. Okay, we have talked about why you might not like this book. Let's talk about why you might. We've got, like I said before, we do have a couple of different stories going on. One of them involves an authoritarian country. This authoritarian country is coded Slavic. The president's name is not Putin. This is a made up country, but it is coded Slavic. And they have some sort of technology that allows the president to basically live forever. He can download his brain into a new body. We're not real clear about where these bodies come from, although one of the characters does state at some point that death is required for the president to get these bodies. So they're not necessarily clones, although they could be. I don't know how they're getting these new bodies. They call them blanks. But they might have been actual people. Not sure. We're not sure about that. Either way, he can download his brain into a new body. And this is one of those secrets like Trump has secrets. You know, we all absolutely know that he is making millions of dollars. It's just that nobody talks about it. Like, nobody is confused when the old president dies and the new president makes a big speech about how he's, a reformer, and then everything goes back to exactly how it was before. Like, nobody is confused about what is going on here. We just don't talk about it. The media doesn't talk about it. The people can't really talk about it because very authoritarian country, there is a lot of surveillance going on. They have, constant cameras trained on people. They're using social credit scores to restrict the movement of certain people. There's a lot of authoritarian going on right now. So this president is downloading his mind into repeated other bodies. And you are kind of following the doctor who is tasked with getting his brain into a new body. That's what this doctor does. And he's got family who is living, I believe, in Venice or Rome, somewhere in the Mediterranean, not in this country, who he is trying very hard to just get back to. And that means he has to do this thing and act like a good authoritarian puppy. I do love how the president occasionally will talk to other people about how they have this amazing technology that means they never have to die, they never have to get sick, they never have to grow old. They can basically live forever. And he is the only person in this country with access to this technology. So all of the people he's talking to don't have access to that. He's just it makes me uncomfortable because, yeah, none of the people he's talking to has access to the same technology that he does. There is, of course, a resistance to the authoritarian regime. There is always resistance to authoritarian regimes. They're kind of unstable inherently and will eventually eat themselves. But we don't need to get into political theory right now. We just need to talk about what's going on in the book. So you have a few characters in the resistance. One of the POV characters is actually somebody who wrote a book. This is the book I was talking about before. It's a fictional book in this universe, and you don't actually understand a whole lot about what it's talking about, but you do get quotes, and they are fairly thoughtful. They are fairly insightful. But the author of this book, she is a POV character for at least a few chapters, and she's not sure she did any good. She's not sure that all of the fighting and all of the death and writing this book and being put into exile, being put out to pasture because they're afraid to kill her and make her a martyr, she's not sure She's not sure that did anything. It's a little hard. It's a little hard to read that, but it's understandable, I think, when people are fighting for so long and it's not happening yet. Sometimes resistances have to go on for a very long time, and the people at the beginning never see the end of it, and it can feel like everything you've done didn't mean anything. I appreciated that point of view. I liked it. There is another character from this same authoritarian country. Her name is Lilia. Lilia, yeah. She's she's not a resistance fighter. She's a researcher. She's an academic. She doesn't she doesn't want to fight. She just wants to go to London. She wants to do her research. She's got some very interesting ideas. She wants to like be involved in science, and that means she has to leave this country. She does manage to leave this country. She does manage to go to London, and she makes a contraption. I won't get into everything that this contraption does because some of it is actually spoilers. But the most obvious thing that this contraption does that you will understand very quickly is that it creates dioramas that are metaphors for the mental state of a person that this diorama is connected to. There are two of these dioramas currently in existence. One is Lilia, and one is this man in London that she met, her boyfriend from London. So there are two dioramas, and they basically just show a visual metaphor for how that person's mental state. For example, it could show a woman in a forest, or it could show a man in a seaboat, a sailing ship of some sort. So they're not telling you what that person is thinking. They're just a metaphor for their current state of mind. So one, it's very interesting how it talks about that, and the other is it's got some interesting implications that I won't really get into right now. Either way, there are many groups who are after this diorama and Lilia because showing somebody's mental state is not all that this contraption can do. So you've got multiple groups who want to get their hands on this. They are not telling the truth to anyone, to Lilia, to her boyfriend, to each other, to us as the audience. We don't necessarily know what the truth is. We don't know if these groups are good or bad or anti-authoritarian or pro-authoritarian. We don't entirely know that they're not all the same group. We know almost nothing. Some of the people in the group don't know anything because these are all just agents who were not told things that they don't need to know. So you've got that going on. It's kind of a spy thriller going on in the middle of this book because everybody wants to get their hands on these dioramas and nobody is telling anyone the truth, including us as the audience. So they are both like, who do I trust? Who should I give the diorama to? Should I give the diorama to anyone? Do I need to run? That's all going on in the middle of this book. The second part, the second story that we are following in this book involves a staffer in a parliamentarian government somewhere. It's a fake country, but this government is in the West, or at least closer to the West than it is the Federation. I get the feeling I don't want to say Ukraine adjacent because it's not. I don't think it has anything to do with the Ukraine, but it is like closer geographically to this authoritarian federation than it is to the free West. And they have just gotten their own AI prime minister. That's right. The entire West has decided that rationalization is the way to go, and they're all going to install AIs and make them the prime ministers. There is an AI consultant, one of the consultants from this company that makes these AI prime ministers is actually in the book, and you do hear him talk. And from what he says, like we have no real way, we as the audience don't have any real way to fact check anything he is saying, but the characters in the book don't necessarily disagree with him. So he's probably telling kind of the truth. Either way, these AI prime ministers in the West, at least, have done some pretty good things. Like they've lowered deficits while keeping social welfare high. They've lifted the lifestyle of many people. Like they've done some good things. There has been reigning peace. We haven't had a bad thing happen yet. Always, always is the problem word in that sentence. So this country, this closer to the Federation fake country, installs their own AI prime minister. And it immediately goes rogue and starts increasing fuel prices by exponential amounts, as far as I can tell. And now all of these parliamentarians and all of their staffers are locked in the parliamentary building because there are people outside who want to do them harm. Sudden violence going on because the AI prime minister has gone completely rogue. So you are dealing with that as well. These two stories don't entirely overlap. They just sort of talk to each other, if that makes sense. They are in conversation with each other, but they're not really affecting the other. What's going on in this authoritarian country, although they do notice that there are AI prime ministers. They're not blind. They notice that this is all going on in the West, but it doesn't really affect this authoritarian. And the AI in the West going rogue doesn't really affect the authoritarians. These two stories don't really affect each other, but they are in an interesting conversation with each other. At this section of the video, I was planning on putting in a little spoiler section to talk about the ending, because I think the ending will be a little controversial. I think some people will not like the ending. I think it will be crushing. They don't like it. It's not a happy ending. And I would argue with that. I would argue with that, and I do kind of want to argue with that, but I don't want to tell you my interpretation of the ending and then argue with my own interpretation. That's not how I want that discussion to go. I would much rather that you read this book, interpret the ending in the way that you would interpret the ending, and then tell me what you think about the ending. And maybe I could argue with your interpretation, but I don't want to argue with my own and how I think some people might take it. So what I'm going to say, instead of doing a spoiler section, I'm just going to say that the ending can be interpreted in multiple ways. And not all of them are happy, fun ways. It's a little ambiguous. I say it's a little ambiguous. You might think it's clear as water. You might think it's crystal. Maybe. I think it's possible that there is somebody in the world who thinks it is clear as water. I don't. I think it is ambiguous. I think it could be a happy ending. Maybe. Either way, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to interpret the ending for you and then tell you what the ending means. I'm not going to do that. I want you to read the ending and tell me what you thought it meant. Tell me whether you thought it was a happy ending or a sad ending or a crushing ending or a hopeful ending or a like, what do you think this ending was? I think, personally, I think it's a little hopeful. I think it's I think it's a little hopeful. I think it's a little happy. I think it is ambiguously happy. I think I am cautiously optimistic about the ending, and that's where I am. Either way, I hope I have given you enough information to decide whether or not you actually want to read this book. I like I said, I do hope at least some people do read it and then tell me how they felt about the ending. Put it in the down below, you know exactly what to do with those comments. If this book sounds interesting to you, please read it. If not, I haven't wasted your time. You can go on happy with your life that you did not wander into this book and hate it. Although you could have wandered into this book and loved it. You could have. It could have happened. But if it doesn't, you know what? There's plenty of other books in the world. There are plenty of other books. Read one of those. Please like, please share, please comment, especially if you've read the book and have a different interpretation of the ending, which I assume at least half of you will. There's going to be a few. If you have a different interpretation of the ending than I have, if you have something other than cautiously optimistic going on at the end of the book, I absolutely want to hear from you. I want to hear what you thought. And I will see you later. Thanks.